I don't know how familiar you are with today's first lesson from the book of Acts. You see, you may have noticed there's this woman, Tabitha. Tabitha, also called Dorcas. And yes, I will admit the name Dorcas doesn't really scream powerhouse of the early church. But please stay with me. Perhaps maybe we should pay more attention to the name Tabitha, to the name Dorcas. After all, Tabitha is a disciple, not a helper, not a fan of Jesus, not a sweet lady making casseroles in the background. She is given the title disciple. The only woman in the New Testament actually called that disciple. Interesting, though. I haven't done a Google search, but I've never come across a St. Dorcas church or a St. Tabitha church. Which honestly makes me wonder, how many other Tabithas have we forgotten to name as a church? And what does she do with her life? Well, she makes clothes. That's it. That's her whole resume. She's out there doing the small, holy, practical things like many women before her. She's sewing tunics, comforting widows, loving people who get ignored by the world, and let's face it, probably by the church as well. And then she dies. And when she dies, her people, especially the women, they're wrecked, they're destroyed, they're overcome with grief. They gather around her body in that room with the clothes she made. They don't call her blessed. They don't quote theology. Rather, when Peter arrives, they show Peter just what she did. Look, they say, she made this for me. That's what grief sounds like when it's born of deep sacrificial love. That's what it looks like when someone actually mattered. We hear today from the 23rd Psalm, which we love to quote. And it's a beautiful image of cups running over. But one line we often all too easily glance over is that line, though when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Not if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, but though, or some translations say when. It's inevitable. It comes with the territory. Death happens. We know that all too well in our family, my household, recently. My 9-year-old and 6-year-old just kind of experienced their first major death. Their great-grandmother passed away at the age of 91, and she was a lot like Tabitha, a lot like Dorcas, did a lot of small things with great love. And as we remember all that she did, we give thanks for her life. But my 6-year-old Braxton, he's not there yet. I remember telling him just a couple days ago, and he was overcome with grief, crying almost uncontrollably for an hour as I held him in my arms. And at one point, he looks at me, and working through it, he says, Jesus is a jerk. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, Jesus just let my granny die. Jesus can do anything. Why did he let my granny die? And though we might not use those words or have the theology of a 6-year-old, I'm sure many of us have been there. Why do people have to die at 91 or younger? People that matter to us. We ask that question over and over again. But that's what grief sounds like. But in today's story, something different happens. Something that I wish could happen all the time, but doesn't. Peter shows up. And let's just be real for a minute. When Peter shows up, it gets a little weird. Imagine you invite Peter to your household to mourn the loss of someone who mattered to you. He kicks everyone out, kneels and prays, and tells her to get up. Tabitha, get up. And she does. She opens her eyes, sits up and comes back to life. Pretty cool. But here's the thing. This story isn't just about Tabitha being dead and then becoming alive again. It's about the people around her refusing to let her be forgotten. It's about a miracle, yes, but that miracle starts in the tears and the stubbornness of a community who will not let her memory go. I'm sure, like my 6-year-old, there was anger and frustration about a beloved member of their community who died. I'm sure that there were people who prayed, perhaps, for God to swoop in like a superhero and make everything better. But if that's all we get from this story, I think we've missed the point. You see, we live in a world where people are dying all around us. Not just physically, though yes, that happens too, but emotionally, spiritually, indivisibly, dying all the time. People are dying of shame. People are dying of poverty, of rejection. And yet, there are so many Tabithas, Dorcases, who are out there sowing hope into a world that keeps trying to unravel. It seems almost determined to unravel. The church perhaps, if it's anything at all, should be full of Dorcases, full of Tabithas. Not superheroes that can swoop in and save the day and make everything better. Not gatekeepers who are determining who is worthy enough to be called the disciple, who's in and who's out. We surely don't need more doctrinal cops. What we need is just weird, wonderful people who do great love in tiny and radical ways. Yes, Peter is nice, but perhaps we need more Tabithas. You see, the church should be the ones holding up those handmade tunics, pointing to compassion, weeping without shame, and saying, this right here, this is what love looks like. And maybe, if we're lucky or faithful enough with each other through the dying parts, we'll also witness the rising as well. Things that we thought were dead will come back to life. Many of us know about these people who do small acts of great kindness. Perhaps you're one of them. Parents, mothers know this all too well. Shepherds know this as well. It wasn't the most glamorous job in the world, yet it needed to get done. And it was done, perhaps unknown to many people. So to all the Tabithas out there, making meals, holding hands, listening without fixing, sewing the world back together again, stitch by stitch. Don't let anyone tell you that this work is not holy. You are a disciple. This work is holy. It is. And maybe the rest of us, if I'm honest, myself included, I don't do anything subtly. Maybe the rest of us, like myself, need to stop trying to be impressive Christians and instead just try to be resurrecting ones. Small things with great love. Tabitha, get up. Church, get up. There's still work to do. Amen.